I've designed a new hat for summer 2016 that has a 3-inch brim, a drawstring hatband, a lily of the valley lace side band, and a flat tip of the crown with a spiral decrease. The hat is reinforced in the brim with a round trimmer line. In the size small hat, this nylon line worked fine. In the size large hat, I was unable to get a good result with the nylon line, so I replaced it with steel cable that I had left over from a curtain wire from IKEA. I'm going to try my hat design in a different kind of yarn. I've been using a 50-50 cotton acrylic blend, but I want to try some 100% cotton. This dishcloth cotton comes in a lot of pretty colors. My cousin with pretty red hair has asked for a hat with this as the underside of the brim and this blue color as the main part of the hat. So I need to start by casting on with this blue color. Let's see if we could find the end. Sometimes I find it's useful to just use a crochet hook to go in there and grab the yarn from the inside. There we go. Now I need, to start this hat, I'm using interchangeable needles with a 16-inch cable. That's 16 inches counting the tips. And I'm going to cast on with these big 11 tips. I'm going to put them both on, even though you really only need one for a cast on. But just to keep track, I'll put both on. So these are the 11s. This is the biggest needle that this cable works with. And this cast on of this hat doesn't turn out to be, it's not a problem if it's not stretchy enough, because I'm using such a big needle and I'm going to pick it up later, so the big sloppy cast on won't really matter. I'm going to do off camera 2 arm lengths of this yarn and then start doing a long-tailed cast on the 11 needle. So just do a cast on quickly, nothing special, just use a nice big fat needle. If you don't have interchangeable needles, you can do it on a straight needle and then transfer it to the circular needle in a size 7 16-inch. Okay, now I have 81 stitches cast on with, and I counted them several times with my little knitting needles, separating out the 20s so I can check my work. Now I need to grab my 10 needles out of this octopus. So not twisted, and then I'm going to knit 1 stitch and then immediately bind it off with that extra stitch. So now I have just 80 stitches. I need a round marker. Right, there's my end of round marker, and I need to start knitting right away with the color for underneath the brim of the hat. The blue one was easy. This one is not. Look, I had to pull the whole half a ball out. There, good as new. Yarn, you are not the boss of me. So now I have my bright green color that's going to be the underside of this hat, and I want to just knit around with the size 10 needles, and then after that round I'm going to go straight down to a size 7 needle, so I make a nice dense brim. Okay, I finished my first round on the size 10 needles to give myself a little slack for later. I'm done with this blue yarn for now. I could cut this off, and I will deal with these ends after I get a little bit more knit. Now, the original pattern for this hat, this size, I'm knitting this pattern But this is a bulky 50% cotton, 50% acrylic yarn, and I want to compare it to this same kind of yarn that I'm knitting now, which is the 100% cotton, dishcloth cotton. And I've compared my gauge, and this hat has the same gauge as this, knit on size 8 needles versus these done on 7. So heavier yarn, smaller needles equals the same gauge with smaller yarn and a size up. So I'm going to use the size 8 needles instead of 7. Now I'm going to show you why I did that cast on in a different color. This hat also has an under brim a different color, and this row where it's this one was actually knit top down, and then this was a grafted edge, but you get a little purl bump of a different color, and I'm just being super perfectionist, and to avoid this being a different color, that's why I cast on the first row in the same color, so when you join them it'll be a perfect knit join with no bump of another color yarn. And actually I think it all gets disappeared inside the hat when I join the rolled edge for the drawstring, so it's kind of just extra work, but that's what makes this row of white here. I just think it's neater, but not entirely necessary. If you forget to do it, don't worry about it. Okay, so let me go down to my size 8 needles. If you don't have interchangeable needles, you don't have to do all this needle changing stuff. Only the 11 at the very beginning is the most important, or anything big. The first row is not critical because you're going to determine the actual size of this ring when you join the bottom of the hat to the top of the hat. So as long as it's the right gauge at the top on the other side, when you join the two sides together, it'll work. The pattern says to put a stitch marker every 10 stitches to mark where we're going to do the increases, but I forgot. So I've used clip markers that I can slip over the cable or over the needle, and I counted around to mark every 10 stitches, and it starts halfway around the end of round marker. So 5 stitches over this way and 5 stitches this way is going to be the wedge for the increases. So you knit to the marker and then do an increase. If you don't like my increase, you can do a different kind, just do them all the same. I like the lifted increase where you pick up the stitch on the needle and then knit it. I'll go to the next one and show it to you again. This is a little bit sloppy because the last row is done on big needles. It gets tighter. And actually with cotton, when it gets tighter, it's actually kind of hard on your hands. So slip the marker, and then let me get closer on this. Alright, the lifted increase, you pick up the stitch from the row below onto the needle and then knit it. I'll do it again. Drop it. So there's the stitch on the last row, and knit into that. And then keep knitting around. So that's what I call make one. And then this still counts as knit one, even though it seems like you just worked that column, you didn't work that actual stitch. So that makes 2 stitches where you used to have just 1. Alright, I've done my last increase round, and the next round is a straight knit round, but I want to switch to my main color yarn. I'm at the end of the row of knitting, and the next row is purl. I'm actually done with this contrast color yarn, so I can cut that off, but I'm just going to work this into the yarn on the inside of the brim. This will all be hidden, but I want it to stay inside. And this is a trick I learned from Stacy Perry's videos on Very Pink Knits, to split the yarn and thread half of it through a neighboring stitch and then tie the tails. And if you tie them multiple times before you pull it really tight, it will not tighten up the work. And it's cotton, you can tug on it quite hard, and then I just cut it off. Now we also have a blue tail from where I joined the yarn, but I can't really weave that in because I don't have enough blue knit yet. So after I knit a few rows, then I'll take care of this other tail. Now I'm just going to purl around the whole hat. The reason I did the knit row before this purl turn row is because the purls would make this bump and interrupt the color if I just did purls without knitting first. This way it's more smooth. So because there were 18 stitches between the markers, I want to make it, I want to move it over by the number of the original spacing, which is 10. It's in the pattern. But that comes out to leave 3 stitches before the marker. I'm doing it this way just because this is where I happen to be. And this will make my counting more straightforward. So 3 stitches before the marker, I place the end of round marker, I place a decrease marker. And then finish the purl row. Slip the end of round marker. And now I'm going to knit 15 and place another marker. If you just start here, you at the end of the purl round, you knit 15 and place a marker. Okay, that's 15. Now I'm going to place a marker and knit 18 to the next marker. The idea is to be sure at the end of this round you have 18 stitches between all your markers, and that makes 18 from this 15 plus the 3. Sorry, it's time for Space Station Live. So that makes 18. Decreases are worked this way. Knit up to the marker, slip the marker, slip the first stitch knitwise, slip the next stitch purlwise, and knit through the back. 1 stitch decreased. And keep knitting to the next marker. In the next row, after the decrease row, is a straight knit row. That's 15, 16, 17 stitches between markers. Slip the marker, slip 1 knitwise, slip 1 purlwise, and knit through the back loop to decrease 1. Now a regular slip-slip knit is slip, slip, and knit. What I'm doing different is instead of slipping them both, this is the correct orientation. The slipping is twisting the stitches. So this is the standard orientation, and when you slip a stitch knitwise, what you're doing is putting the working leg in the back. So by slipping the first one knitwise and the second one purlwise, I've made them so that they're sort of back to back in a way. So when I knit them together through the back loop, this one is nice and open, and the one behind it is a little bit twisted behind it. So it kind of makes it want to stay behind this front stitch. On the third decrease round, you're going to run into a strange situation. Here's your decrease marker, And then there's the end of round marker between the stitches you need to decrease. So slip the slip stitch, move the marker, finish your decrease, and put the end of round marker back, because your end of round is now going to follow your work as you do these decreases. But when you finish and you join the edges together, that's where you want to start. I've come to the end of my decrease round, and it's time to join the top and bottom of the brim. So I have to deal with the tails at the beginning. I'm going to try something new. Okay, now I have intentionally made a hole. I've undone my where I joined to knit in the round, and I've left this loop on this side. I'm going to put the two tails through this loop, or I'm going to secure this loop, but just temporarily. So I'm going to put the tails through and just tie a bow, and then I can untie this bow when I do the finish work on the hat. I think this is going to work. Okay, I've gotten to the end of my increases, and I've finished off what I want to do to the beginning part of the knitting, and now I need to pick up some stitches. So I'm going to take my smallest needles from my interchangeable set and put these on a medium length cable. This is the 24-inch cable. I'm just going to use this to pick up stitches. It doesn't have to be any particular length, but too long is better than too short. So now what I want to do is, here's my end of round marker that's fallen off. Don't need that. I want to join the brim like this. So what I need to do is pick up the stitches pick up these blue stitches and knit them at the same time as I knit these. So I'll take the extra needle on a cable and pick up these stitches. I'm just going to pick up one leg of the stitch like this and just pick these up all the way around. This is my cast on edge. I just used the long tail cast on, but I used a real big needle, so these are nice and loose. And I'll just go all the way around the hat like this, picking all these up. Well, this is unfortunate. My other cable needle came out of my stitches while I was putting in that other one. Okay, I've got my stitches back on this front needle, and I've got the back needle almost finished. I wanted to zoom in so you can see up close. Okay, here's a closer view of picking up these stitches. I'm going in just the front leg and picking them up, and the direction that it's the most effortless. If you wrap it the other way, it doesn't want to work that way. So I just wrap it the easy way and then work out which is the correct leg to knit through later. This is just the way it feels right. Watch out for this other needle. Alright, and now I'm back to where I've made this contingency plan for putting the cable in at the end. At this point, I want to go around and count the stitches on this back needle. I've got the cable in, and I want to double check and count to make sure I have the same number of stitches on the front and the back so that I can knit them together. Alright, I've counted all my stitches to match up with the markers on the outside, so 10 between each of these needles stuck through the stitches. And what I have is I have 9 here and 9 here, so I can just start right off knitting to each one. But at the end, you see here 2 columns where I don't have a corresponding stitch picked up, so I will knit the last 2 stitches plain without knitting to the back, and that'll leave the hole I want that I can sew up later with these tails. Alright, now I'm ready to knit this together. I have the back needles pulled all the way through and the extra cable pulled through underneath. And I want to pick up I want to tension my working yarn, my left hand, and then I'm going to knit this front stitch and pick up the back stitch. And the way I've wrapped it, I want to pick up the back leg of it, and then I just knit that off. Closer up, here we go. Knit the front stitch, knit the back stitch through the back loop, and knit together, and slide both stitches off the needles. Can you see how this this stitch that I picked up from the edge of the cast on, the part of the yarn that goes to the right is on the back side of the needle. That's why I'm picking up the working leg of the front stitches on the front, and the corresponding stitch side is on the back of the back needle, and I knit those together. Okay, here I am back at the end. I've run out of stitches on this needle, so I'm just going to let that other needle drop and knit the last 2 stitches, and that's the end of the round.